So me and my husband got into an argument last night, and one of our kids heard us and kind of came into the room. While I'm not going to go into detail about like what we were arguing about, I am going to just kind of tell you guys the conversation that I had with my kid after the fact. And this was like the next morning. So, anyways, he, we just kind of talked about it, and he was like, I was like, yeah. I said, so you kind of heard mommy and daddy, having a discussion, blah blah blah. And he was like, yeah, I was just kind of curious about what you guys were arguing about. And I said, well, we were just arguing about some adult things. I said, sometimes when you're in a relationship, there are things that you just will not agree on. And I just started breaking down, like, look, in a relationship, there's so many different things that people could be, could disagree about, whether it's money, whether it's parenting you guys, whether it's, how we do things around the house. I was like, you got to understand, men and women are totally different. So a woman might have feelings and emotions about something that a man can care less about, and vice versa. But the whole goal of a relationship is trying to find the common ground, trying to find how things can work for both of you guys. So then I went on to ask him, like, how did it make you feel, to hear us arguing? And he said, well, I was curious about what it was, but it also made me a little sad. And so when he said that, of course, that kind of got me in my feelings. At the time, I had to kind of muster that up. But I was like, why did it make you sad? And he was just like, well, just because, y'all were arguing. Now, when I'm thinking about this now, and just now what made me start recording is just like playing the conversation with him back in my mind. And so I was just, he didn't really get to the meat of why it made him sad. Um, but I don't know, it just had me thinking a lot about it. And we just kept talking, and I was explaining to him, look, it's natural for people in a relationship to argue with one another. I was like, it's, sometimes you might have a heated debate or a heated discussion. I was like, and he made a face. And whenever he makes a face, it's because he doesn't know the definition of a word. And I said, okay. And he was like, what does debate mean? And he was like, is that like, all he could think about, child, was the presidential election. And I'm like, yes, that's valid. But then I had to also go into my homeschooling bag. Y'all know I'm a homeschool mom. So I had to explain to him what a debate was. It's two opposing opinions and people kind of going back and forth stating their case. I was like, it's nothing more than a heated debate. Yes, it was an argument. I'm not, getting away from the fact that it was an argument, but, just letting him know, look, that's healthy. It was a heated debate. I said, but let me tell you what's not okay. Okay. So teachable moment. Let me tell you what's not okay. It's not okay for you to name call. It's not okay for you to disrespect. It's not okay for you to put your hands on one another. Did you experience any of that? And he was like, no. And I went ahead and just tapped myself on the back. Not in that moment. I'm saying this is now that I'm thinking about it. Another thing is I patted myself on the back for the simple fact that I don't think my son has ever really heard us argue. Like, it kind of made him nervous. What I like is that he said that it made him sad. I'm not happy about the fact that it made him sad, but I am happy about the fact that he didn't say it made him scared. Just thinking about my past, not my past relationship, but just thinking about my past trauma. I'll just say that because of course I don't want to put any like family business out there, but just thinking about my past trauma, there was times where I would hear arguments or heated debates that turned physical, and I became scared. I was scared of what the outcome was going to be. So while I'm sitting here thinking, what made me record this was that was, he was not scared. And I'm proud of that. I'm not going to lie. I'm proud of that. And I was just letting him know, even though y'all, we don't do that here. And me and my husband has been together for 16 years. Never has that happened. I still went out of my way to explain to him that is not okay. My son is only 10. That is not okay for you to physically touch anybody. It's not okay for you to disrespect, for you to belittle. And I did tell him, and whenever you're raising your voice, that shows a lack of self-control. And we were showing a lack of self-control by raising our voices. That is what you heard. That's what made you come in. Listen, past experience, I would have never walked in on a heated discussion. You see what I'm saying? But even in a moment, because I was a little frustrated in this argument, I was a little frustrated. I did get loud. And when he walked in, I got really sarcastic. And he was like, what's going on? And you could see the look on his face, not a scared look, but just like a sad look. And he was like, it sounds like you guys are arguing. And he does this thing where he might ask a question and he knows the answer. Yes, we were arguing. Like, yes, that's what you heard, correct. But he was like, it sounds like you guys were arguing. And I was like, yeah, we were, like, but this was in the middle of it. And I was like, yeah, we were. Would you like to come in? Would you like to sit down? Would you like to listen in? I started being sarcastic. Might have not been the best move, but the fact that it was still somewhat of, he felt comfortable. He felt safe enough to say, hey, what are you guys doing? Even if he thought he was about to, mediate or whatever the case may be. I'm just taking a moment, of course, to reflect, but I'm taking a moment to still give myself and my husband a pat on the back that it wasn't because we just argue all the time. It wasn't because he was scared. It wasn't because, things were getting physical. We were showing a lack of self-control by getting loud. And that is something, like, now that I think about it going forward, oh Lord, we'll have to work on that too. What we don't do is like argue in front of the kids. So the fact that we were in our room doing it with the door closed and locked, you see what I'm saying? we thought that was helpful. You know what I'm saying? We thought that that was something that the kids would not hear, but hey, it happens. But anyways, I just wanted to share that. I don't know, you guys might take from this what you take from this, but I just wanted to go on. I just wanted to share. Of course, I'm going to reflect on it, and I'm going to figure out a way to avoid that happening in the future. And if you guys have any tips on healthy discussions, healthy debates, let me know. Let me know in the chat. I'm always open to learning and growing. So yeah, that's that. We might not have come to an agreement. We may have to revisit the discussion again, but there's a way to do it, right? And there's a way to do it healthily without all that extra. Okay. That's all I got, y'all. Bye.